Hey ladies, this is Mocha Mommy here bringing you another video. And in this video, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. The issue that I feel that we don't address as a community and how we as Black women moving forward have to make sure that this is an issue that we're honest about, forthright about, and making sure that we're seeking help and healing from. So this video was inspired by a situation that I had at work. I work in a hospital that's basically a long-term acute care facility. And at this facility, I had a patient on dialysis. It was a Black male patient on dialysis. And he was in his mid-50s, so not too much older than I am, not even 10 years older than I am. So he was in his early to mid-50s, and he's on dialysis. And basically, he has fallen ill to kidney failure after exposure to this current illness because this current illness that we're in really exacerbates chronic conditions. So this kidney failure was brought on by years and years of substance abuse, on and off. And this person actually was a functional abuser, somebody who was able to, semi-function in society, hold a job, but definitely kind of had stints in and out of rehab and the like. But the thing that was so interesting is that this person is on dialysis for several hours a day, 3 times a week. And one of the times when I was rounding on him, he was watching a video of the suited content creator. Very interesting. So, he's watching this video and he's kind of making comments about how many of us nurses, particularly the Black nurses, have scrub caps on. And he's like, you Black women, with your bonnets on your head and da 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 da. And I'm like, well, sir, these are not bonnets, they're scrub caps. And many of them, if you notice, there are masks attached to them. They help keep situations more sanitary. You are in an immunocompromised position. So therefore, we have to protect you by protecting ourselves, keeping you away from these pathogens. So if you see, there's a lot of disposable caps outside of your room. There are gowns. There are extra masks and face covers because you are an immunocompromised patient. And there are patients who are positive here. And we just want to make sure that we're not giving you anything you didn't come with. So this patient had been rude throughout the entire visit, making a lot of demands, talking down to a lot of nurses, particularly the Black nurses and CNAs. And so finally I had it, and I kind of let him have it, and I was like, how dare you? How dare you sit here and worry about the hair on Black women's heads when you're not even worried about the kidneys in your back? You see what I'm saying? You're here in kidney failure, and we're the ones taking care of you. You talk to these nurses and these CNAs any kind of way, as rude as you can be, not realizing that when you leave here, you don't have health insurance that's going to cover your follow-up care. You need us to advocate for you in front of case management and social work to get you Medicaid and Medicare. The only person you have as power of attorney to help you is your 76-year-old mother, and she can't even drive you back and forth to these visits. So right now, Black women are the only thing that's helping you right now, and you have the nerve to be rude for us. Do you think any of these Filipino nurses are going to go to bat for you? Do you think any of these white nurses are going to go to bat for you? It's us that's here in this room. So many people have been avoiding you because of how rude you are and how rude you talk to us. They see that. And how dare you be rude to us? And you're sitting here watching these videos, probably super chatting this guy, not realizing that we're the ones who are standing in the gap for you. When you leave here, the case manager that's going to take care of you is also going to be a Black woman. I'm going to be the one who's writing the prescriptions because the doctor just comes by and sign off on what it is I do. So how dare you be disrespectful? And I think this is the thing. we're not really addressing the realities of substance abuse in this issue, in this economy. And on how it really impacts our community. You know, we talk about Black male incarceration being one of the reasons why there's such a huge disparity. But when we really look at what Black men are being incarcerated for, a lot of it is possession. We talk about Black male homicide. A lot of those homicides revolve around the drug abuse industry, around the substance abuse trade. And then we talk about Black men and declining life expectancy. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they didn't really take care of themselves and have a lot of underlying conditions as a result. And, you know, we talk about medical racism. And I will agree, the healthcare system definitely has some racism. But this is what I'll say. When we have patients come in and we pull their lab work and it looks as if they have a chronic underlying condition, those patients fall really, really low on the totem pole. And I'm not proud to say this, but with our overextended services right now, with just how overextended we are, if we can tell that you're not taking care of yourself, we don't really prioritize taking care of you. You know, it's so crazy how you see that the ills of the Black community is so often blamed on Black women, on our beauty practices, on our reproductive choices. But no one really addresses the elephant in the room, that is Black male substance abuse. The number one reason why Black men are incarcerated, the number one reason for the homicide rate that affects Black men. They keep thinking that it's something, well, it's you single moms who raise these boys. It's your weave is why we can't rebuild our communities because, you know, it's taking money outside of our community. Well, you know, in reality is this external locus of control is also a perpetuator of the problem. If you can't control Black women's reproductive choices and you can't control their consumer choices and beauty practices, what can you control? Why are you not a support system for Black male sobriety? Why are you not an economic force to be reckoned with so that young Black men can see and have an alternative to make money outside of the drug trade? Why is there not a cultural safe space for Black men who decide to not enter the drug trade? Why is there not a safe space for Black boys and Black children to go so that they are not so subject to being on the street when they're latchkey kids? So again, things that Black men definitely have the power to do, but don't. They would rather look at this external locus of control. And reality is, in their mind, this makes a lot of sense. But to the outside community who is constantly seeing the poor outcomes, who is constantly seeing the high arrest records and the declining life expectancy, a steadily declining life expectancy that's been there for the past 14 years as a result of Black male substance abuse, no one's believing that weave is the problem. My dad survived a sweeping heroin epidemic. I survived a sweeping crack epidemic. And now we're in the face of a crystal meth, opioid, and tainted marijuana epidemic in our community. And the only agency of the collective of Black males that I've ever seen really come together and address the realities of substance abuse was the Nation of Islam. And that was like the late 80s, early 90s when I really saw them kind of come to power under Minister Louis Farrakhan to really discuss the issue of Black male sobriety. And it's been really the only support system that I've been aware of in all of my years of life to address the issue of Black male sobriety. But I think even Black men who have more of a Christian background could definitely gravitated to it. I know members of my family who had struggled with addiction gravitated to the support system that these men tried to create. But overall, there's really never been any kind of collective effort by Black men to address their sobriety. Some of the blowback that you get when you want to discuss the issues of Black male sobriety and the fact that drug culture has been so much intertwined with our culture, whether it be drug distribution culture or the violence around drug distribution culture or around drug use, the other pushback you get is, well, the majority culture did it too. The majority culture did it too. They've always had, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and the grunge era in the 90s. Definitely something I remember as a young adult. Definitely glorified the drug trade, but definitely glorified drug use. But let's take a step back. What did they call that genre of music, right? Even though millions of people listened to it, and even it started a global trend, they called it alternative almost to distinguish and to let others know that, yes, this is a part of an underground a part of American culture, but it's definitely not mainstream. It's a subculture that we're not very proud of, and that even though we're proliferating it and profiting it from now, it's an alternative to the mainstream. But yet, so much of mainstream Black culture was around drug use and the drug trade. We glorified it. And people who lived close to that culture and adhered to the values of that culture were the ones who were, quote unquote, keeping it real. Even if you were from a Black family like mine that was integral in civil rights and that had an illustrious Black history of ownership and Black pride and establishing and building, you were not real as the people who had you were less real. You were not keeping it real, even though you were adhering to the values you were raised with, because you didn't assimilate to the popularity of the drug culture. So now, as those men are aging, we're really seeing how keeping it real is basically ending a lot of their lives. I think a lot of our perception of what drug abusers looks like is one of the things that really also holds us back as a community, and it holds us back from healing. We tend to think and demonize drug addicts as people who are destitute, like the crackhead on the street, not realizing how many of the addicts in our lives we're functioning. Right? Many of us have stories about dads getting home drunk and not being participating in the family. We have of uncles who used to steal from the family. I know that we've had family members who we mortgaged properties for and sold things for in order to get them into rehab and out of legal trouble. So we have to understand that so many of the addicts in our lives have been functioning addicts. In fact, the majority of the addicts in America are functioning addicts. Understand that the drug trade would not be the multi-trillion-dollar industry it is if every single addict was someone who was destitute and on the street, begging for spare change. No, many of them are able to hold jobs, and many of them are participating in families. So my encouragement to you is basically to make sure that if there are cycles of addiction in your family that you've noticed, if you have participated in codependent behavior in the past, even as a child where you were unaware of it, make sure that you're addressing these issues and working through these issues as an adult, because it could force you to perpetuate those same behaviors. And also realize that when it comes to the vetting process of meeting new people and having new people enter your life, understand that most of these addicts are somewhat functional. So notice some of the covert behaviors that may be associated with addiction. So these are things that it's going to take us a lot of work to recognize, and things that we're going to have to work through. Our own codependent behavior, accepting the fact that most addicts are functioning, and also how we're vetting for the covert behavior that's very much associated with addicts. It's so ironic how so many Black men think that the problem is Black women, but when they realize that they jumped the fence, they realize they have so many of the same problems. It's because you can't hide from yourself. They can't really escape the realities that come with their substance abuse. You know, it was so crazy. Before the summer of social justice, the number one issue that Black men were concerned with was the legalization of marijuana. Now, how people feel about it, here's my issue with it. We can talk about it being legalized, okay? Because we do know that there are disparities in how Black men are sentenced for drug possession versus other races of men. But what we're ignoring, the elephant in the room that we're ignoring, is the fact that, a lot of the times that men are using marijuana, it might be legal, but you still are not able to pass a pre-employment drug screening. And pre-employment drug screenings can keep you out of a lot of fields, and especially unskilled labor, the higher paid echelons of unskilled labor. And a lot of Black men, most Black men are in fact still are unskilled labor. It also doesn't address the fact that, DUIs, they can start testing if you're driving under the influence. And here in the city of Austin, it's been pretty well documented that Black men are 4 times more likely to be stopped by police or for routine traffic stops. Of course, this is before the social justice movement that we've just had. They're 4 times more likely to be stopped than men than white men. But at the same time, if you're still driving inebriated, whether that substance be legal or not, you still are subject to a very costly DUI. Not to mention if you are injured in the workforce, or injured on the job, and with so many Black men being in unskilled labor, with so many of them being service workers, when you're injured and they find that you are a substance abuser, you can't get workman's comp. So these are all issues that they're not concerned about when it comes to the realities of having more access to more substances to abuse. In all honesty, I believe that millennials are the generation that is going to break a lot of these generational curses. They've been one of the groups that have been the most forthright when it comes to dealing with a parent, particularly their Black male parent, who has suffered from substance abuse. Celebrities like Nicki Minaj, Drake, Rihanna, even Kanye West. At one point, he deified his mother for removing him from that situation with his dad, where his dad was basically a known substance abuser. His mother removed him from that situation. So therefore he wasn't economically exploited or didn't learn the dangerous codependent behavior that often comes with having a parent who is, who's a substance abuser. But now here he is throwing her under the bus, talking about she kept his dad away from him, not realizing that he was very well protected by the economic bubble that she placed around him by making sure that he wasn't around his dad, and giving him the opportunities to succeed in music and business because of the education that she afforded him and the opportunities she afforded him. So again, never really addressing the elephant in the room as far as Black men and how substance abuse affects their children. You know, we see a lot of back and forth arguments between Black men and Black women. We sometimes see Black women trying to placate to Black men, or Black men trying to get Black women to come back. We see so many different arguments and debates and panels and live streams here on this platform, but none of them really address the real issue, which is Black male sobriety. Listen, you're never going to be your family's leader unless at first you're your brother's keeper. They don't address the issue. And I just feel like at this point, it's no point in getting involved in any kind of debates or any ideological circular discussions about it until they really start to address the real issue. Until they address the real issue, we're never going to solve it. So my suggestion to you, Black women, would be to heal yourself, own up to any addiction that you've experienced, either firsthand or secondhand by a family member, parent, growing up with it around your community. Understand how to spot the covert behavior of an addict and the codependent behavior you may have developed being around addicts your entire life. So ladies, this is really about you withdrawing and healing, as opposed to trying to force a reconciliation that's not going to happen because no one's addressing the real issue. So that's my advice to you to protect your peace in 2022. Al-Anon and Alateen are still available to those who have suffered from having a family member or a loved one that suffered from substance abuse, and it's still impacting you today, either mentally, socially, or spiritually. Still make it a point to reach out for help. If therapy is needed, please definitely do that, but make sure you look for those affordable sources of mental health care to make sure that you're addressing this issue, and to not internalize it so much, and to not look for outside reconciliation or outside acknowledgement, because it's not coming. No one's addressing this issue. So I just think that it's just time for us to focus on our own healing. This is Mocha Mommy, and I'll see you in the next video.